Right, I think we're good to go. Gentlemen, all settled, comfortable? Hassan, you good?
So I'm comfortable.
Excellent.
1 second.
Well, a very warm welcome to this very special panel here at Dubai Watch Week. Thanks ever so much for being here, for joining us. Quick introduction, my name is Robin Swithinbank. I'm a journalist. I write for the New York Times, the Financial Times, Business Fashion, and I have a podcast called the Luxury Society Podcast, so do tune in at some point. Now, I suspect that by being here in this room, you're well aware that we are here to, well, in fact, as the screen is telling us, to talk about Leica. Now, Leica, of course, is known first and foremost as the manufacturer of very high-quality photographic equipment, but of late, they have entered into the world of watches. And so we are here today to discuss this new division, to hear from our expert panelists, who I will introduce in just a moment, about the vision, about how they're executing the vision, and indeed what their long-term strategy is, and why they believe that entering into this really quite competitive category is a good idea. So I will do some quick introductions. I'm extremely pleased to be joined up here on stage by Dr. Andreas Kaufmann, who is the chairman and majority shareholder of Leica. To his left is the managing director of the Watches and Accessories division, Henrik Ekdahl. And then over on the left, the far left, we have Hassan Akhras from the Arab Watch Guide. Thank you very much, all three of you, for joining us here. Before we get into our conversation, we just have a quick 2-minute film to show you. Roll the tape.
Time. A symbol that holds meaning. One we fill with significant value. It frames each of our experiences, the stories we tell each other, and the inspiration we take from those who came before us. As humans, it's instilled within us to keep innovating, to keep discovering new interpretations in order to create a movement of our own. Time is personal. A collection of intricate details, each leaving an impression, our own stamp, on how we perceive the world. It's in every memory, in every thought, in every idea. It is at the heart of everything we do. Time is essential.
Very good. Dr. Kaufmann, let's start with you, as indeed we must. Leica, this lovely logo that we know and love so well, is long established. Leica cameras are known around the world. I suspect everybody in this room is extremely familiar with the brand and with its core product. You have provided some of the world's most revered photographers with camera equipment over the years. Some of the most iconic photographs in history have been taken by photographers using your camera equipment. How does Leica come, therefore, to be a watchmaker? What is the connection between cameras and watches?
There are basically 3 elements which started it. One was the founder of the company, which was formerly called Ernst Leitz Wetzlar. So Ernst Leitz I was a trained watchmaker, but that's way back in the 19th century. Actually, 19th century. The second thing was that Leica did at certain times OEM products as a sort of giveaways, watches giveaways. And at a certain time, that was 2013, we did a small batch, 100 pieces with a company, a company from Switzerland called Valbret. And then we said, we have to do it on our own, which was probably a very funny idea, because when you're not in the watch business and starting, we have to do it on our own, it takes a bit. But the funny thing, third element, we met Reinhard Meiss, the former watch designer from Lange & Söhne. So we came together, and then we sort of were able to develop something, because we said, if we do something at Leica as a watch, it has to be our own movement. And maybe it did help that at the beginning you don't know what will happen. So would we do it again? Interesting question, but we did it. So in the watch industry, they told us it takes 10 years to do a new movement. We had 7 years, which is okay.
And that's a fairly brief potted history, but all the same. What is the connection for you between cameras and watches? Because there aren't, as far as I'm aware, there aren't any high-end camera manufacturers who are making high-end mechanical watches.
Quite
as
simple.
well.
When you explain the M camera, there's a piece in it, the so-called Messsucher. It has about, I think, 120 pieces or so. You have here a sort of skeleton of that. And very tiny small pieces. And if, on the other hand, you have an apprenticeship at Leica, 3 years, at the end, you're a trained fine mechanic, fine mechanics, but with a little bit of add-on, you're a watchmaker. So
that's happening. You've got guys who are trained on cameras who are then migrating into watchmaking.
Well, that's not that easy, but
Sure.
If you add for this another course, 6 months, you're a trained watchmaker. You're not in the watch industry because we're in the camera industry and a bit of a different setup. But anyway, so there's a huge connection.
Yeah. Henrik, you're charged with bringing this idea, this concept to life in products. Talk us through how you do that, how you bring a Leica watch to life based on the experience of the company as a camera maker.
Well, like Dr. Kaufmann said, I think this is one of the base things to take into account. Actually, this is a very 100% mechanical time measuring device on top of the M6. So we are pretty close to watchmaking already with our core products. And of course, when designing watches, you have to take into account the brand design language, and you have to transfer that to the wrist without adding gadgets. You know, we're not producing a camera for the wrist. We're into serious watchmaking, but there's a certain way of designing products at Leica, and this design language was then transferred into watches, together with a couple of pretty impressive complications, which you actually can need, because we all know and we all love complications which nobody needs, but they're feasible and they're on the wrist. We think that's great, but that is not really what we are doing. We are adding complications to watches which you can use. And that's what we did, for example, transferring the shutter release from a camera to the push crown of the ZM1 and 2, having a patented power reserve on the ZM1 and 2, which consists of two very, very precise shades that make the white part showing the power reserve that remains to disappear after 60 hours. So there are things we transferred, but again, we're not trying to make a camera for the wrist. Though.
And most of us will have some idea of how a Swiss watch company works, how it produces its watches, the idea of manufacture. Give us an idea of the setup that you're operating and how you actually make your watches.
Well, we have two different product lines. One is made in Germany, one is made in Switzerland. That might be a bit uncommon to have two different countries. Then again, we are talking about two countries that are well into established and recognized watchmaking. The first watches we launched in 2022 were the result of a collaboration with a company called Lehmann Precision, whom we already knew for many, many years, because they produce, among other things, machines which we use when we produce our cameras. So when you go through the factory at Leica, you see big machines where it says Lehmann. So there was already a connection. And they were big enough to start with a small-scale serial production, but yet they were small enough to be interested when the startup Leica Watches knocked on the door. So that is what we do with the made in Germany ZM1 and 2. We, however, also needed the automatic movement, and Lehmann did not have what we needed. We did not really have the time nor the resources to go for a second manufacture movement, because the one we have in the ZM1 and 2 in this watch is a manufacture movement. So we looked for another company that has a high degree of watchmaking tradition and credibility, and we ended up with Chronode. Their master watchmaker, Jean-François Maujean, is a very nice guy to work with, and they had what we needed, and we took one of their movements and adapted it to our needs. For example, our movements are not engraved. We are more into industrial products, and you cannot hide anything on our movements, and it's highly complicated to make them look like they do, but their design fits very well to Leica. So that's the setup.
This strikes me as being quite an elevated setup. There is a high level of investment, clearly, in what you're doing. I think one of the misconceptions about a Leica watch might be that, sort of as you described a little bit earlier, that it's a giveaway, it's a brand extension, it's a licensed product. This is obviously a lot more evolved than that. I don't think anybody would have blamed you if you'd said, let's make a licensed watch with the Leica logo on it. It'll be a nice add-on for people who like Leica. Why didn't you do that?
Quite simple. We have a motto, which is a German motto. Don't try to pronounce it. Das Wesentliche.
Yes, best I don't say that.
Hard to pronounce. Das Wesentliche, when you look it up in the Oxford Dictionary, it's about 23 to 26 different words in English in one German word, which describes the German way of engineering, designing, and a few other things. So, and it was very clear, we didn't want to start with a pure OEM product. So, own movement, own design. We used a former Leica camera designer. He's a professor at Berlin at the University for the Beaux-Arts or whatever it's called. And we used, after Reinhard May's, a second movement designer, because what Reinhard May's designed was a perfect design, but the question is, can you produce a perfect design? And then you need the productionizing. And we did this with another guy from Schaffhausen, which is not completely unknown in the watch industry, Andreas Strehler. So it was a very clear decision. It did cost money, yes, quite so. I can't tell you, well, I could, but I won't.
I didn't ask, for the record.
Yeah, but it was very clear, if Leica does something for Das Wesentliche, it has to be something special. And I think we made this. And the second step was quite simple, because, as you all know, you can't do anything in the industry without the Swiss watch industry. So that was the second decision.
Henrik, both your answer previously and what Dr. Kaufmann has said inspires me and motivates me to want to ask about form and function.
Sorry, ask you about?
I'll ask you about form and function,
yeah.
The idea that the two have to be very, very closely aligned. Yeah. Does that become quite an important philosophy behind your watch designs?
Yeah, I mean, personally, I think watches are to be worn and used, and not simply seen as a financial investment and taken to the bank vault. So I think definitely that our watches are easy to wear. Size-wise, we are adapting a bit downwards. So we launched 39 millimeter watches this year. They need to be easy to use, and I think the best example is the ZM1 and 2 with a push crown, which is very easy to operate. You don't end up not knowing whether you are adjusting the date or the time. We have a fast forward for the date. We have a second time zone when you travel, because I think travel is something that is very close to the core DNA of Leica. You travel, you take photos, but you also, you are in different time zones, etc. So this and having the right functions embedded in a nice design is certainly important, and that's why we also we have a watch designer on board. But regularly we ask the Leica hardware designers, the team designing cameras and binoculars, etc., for their input. So we try to find some synergies there. But then again, we are in watches, so we don't ask them too much either. We ask them, but then we do our thing.
Not too many committees. I've been using this watch for a few days, and the adjustment of the date, while a very, very simple thing, it's incredibly precise.
Yeah.
And impressively so. The sort of thing that made me notice it after 20, 25 years worth of handling watches. So I can feel some of that quality and some of that precision that you're introducing.
And that is the Chronode movement. So this one is even easier. You just push and...
Yes, even easier still.
Yeah, just here.
Dr. Kaufmann, we haven't talked about it here, but it's been talked about so much in history, the decisive moment, which is a phrase that was contemporized in the 1950s by one of your photographers, Henri Cartier-Bresson. This is, as I understand it, is something that you have tried to imbue your watches with, this idea of the decisive moment. Help us understand what exactly that means when it comes to a timepiece.
Well, first, this is the establishment of a new brand inside the Leica empire. Well, you might call it empire, but we're still a small to medium enterprise. It takes, usually to establish a new brand, it takes 10 years. And we started end of 21 or beginning 22, so probably ask us again in 2031. What did we achieve? Key thing is watches are a different setup because we are in retail also. And in retail, watches are a piece of jewelry. A camera sometimes is considered to be a piece of electronics, which is not, because it's mainly optics, but on the other hand. So it's also an attempt to drive our retail in a little bit of a different direction.
Hassan, I'm really conscious I haven't brought you in yet, because we've been talking about the meat of Leica watches and the approach that they have to watchmaking. Hearing this, what are your initial impressions as a watch connoisseur of this approach to watchmaking?
So I've been actually to Vesta when they launched the first watch, and I had a little bit of a skepticism when I arrived. Was, I think, the question that everyone asked, why would Leica get into watches? And the more they started presenting the details and all actually the elements that they were just explaining, the pushing, the button, the red dot, all the elements that actually bring back the design of the iconic Leica cameras into the watch, the closer you get and you kind of become more familiar and you love the watch.
Smile.
And it's actually very interesting to, the functionality is very easy to use. It's very nice on the wrist. The only issue I would, not issue, but I think the only challenge that I've seen from collector's perspective is always, I've seen two reactions. One of them was the Leica collectors who owned the cameras, they immediately get it. They immediately understand the links, you know, the color coding, the ergonomics, the design, so they can be the easiest, the earliest adopters of that watch. And then you have the other collectors who need probably more time, more awareness, and more, I think, back and forth with them just to kind of get them into the spirit of the brand and why is it designed this way and why is it going to be, what's the future of the brand, you know. You said 10 years, I actually completely agree. It's something that takes a lot of time to build, and it's, yeah, it's a process.
Hassan raises a thought that provokes the question of who these watches are for. Are these watches for Leica collectors, people who know and love the brand already, or are they for people who know and love watches? Or are you looking at a completely, a much more universal audience, perhaps? Who buys these watches? Who are they for?
Well, if you ask me, I have a very simple answer to the question why. I say because we're able to do it.
Phew, I thought you were going to stop there.
Yeah. So, but for collectors, first you need to understand the Leica brand. It's an old brand. It's more than 100 years. We celebrated this year's century worldwide. It was started by Ernst Leitz the first, who was a trained watchmaker. So there's a certain element somewhere in the company. So for a watch collector, maybe we need to interpret a little bit more, because usually it has to be complicated and it has to be, we're a German company. Das Wesentliche means the essential, the gist of it. So, and that's how we see watches, with functions, with a certain kind of design. And so it might take a bit to interpret this to a true watch lover. Let's see.
We'll see.
Ask us again.
In 8 years' time.
In
7 or 8 years'
2031.
time. 2031.
Dubai
okay.
Watch Week then.
Henrik, you have a lot of experience in the watch industry. You worked for Richemont for 15, 20 years on IWC. We were talking about Baume & Mercier backstage just a moment ago. What did you learn from the watch industry that you brought into this company? And equally, what is it that you can therefore see can be done differently, as described by Dr. Kaufmann?
I mean, I actually rejoined Leica 2 years ago, because Leica was my first job after university many, many years ago. And then I worked for Cartier, for Rolls-Royce, for BMW, other great brands in different industries. So I think my advantage compared to the people that were involved in this project when it started is that I'm also into photography. I have the Leica disease in me. I love Leica, and I think it's easier to be in charge of this little small startup if you feel that with your heart and soul you are part of the Leica family. Because of course we need help from the big Leica company located just 100 meters away from us. So yeah, of course I do think I have a good taste in watches. Coming from IWC, 17 years, of course that is part of my DNA as well. And looking at other watch brands, IWC Schaffhausen is certainly one of the brands that is the closest to us. It's also about no gadgets and beautiful watches. And the difference is certainly that we have to be pragmatic and realistic regarding our ambition level. We proved with the ZM1 and 2 that we are into serious watchmaking. And if you haven't seen that watch yet, feel free to approach me after this panel talk, and I'll show you the complications and the watch. And I've heard a lot of wow when looking at the movement, for example. So we've shown what we can, but that does not mean that we will come out with a new manufacture movement every 2 years or so. That is not our ambition level. We are mainly an optical company producing the best cameras in the world. But this is a credible add-on to our product portfolio. But we will see what comes in the future. What I can assure you is we will build on the 2 product lines we have because they are beautiful. One inspired by the hardware, and the ZM11 and 12, the chronode watches, more inspired by the world of photography with fantastic, beautiful 2-layer dials where you can see how light and shadow changes the perception of what you're looking at, for example. And after all, the watch needs to be precise, but it also needs to be beautiful. And that's what we aim to continue with.
As has been discussed on this platform a number of times already in the past day and a bit, the watch industry is not having its best moment. There are a number of challenges out there.
That's a nice way of putting it.
Well, yeah, the term perfect storm has been used more than once, which is a term I only ever like to use in inverted commas when I'm writing it down. But this is an awkward time to be entering into the market. What gives you confidence that there's a place for Leica watches in a market that is in a state of contraction at the moment?
Quite simply, we started, so sometimes you can't look at the markets, you have to go through, you have to march through. And that's what we're doing. That's why I said 2031 at Dubai Watch Week. This industry will change a bit, yes, absolutely. We see quite a few things, but we think we might find, and we've already found, a certain way to go into this industry. First, we are in selective retail, which is we do this nearly 20 years, and we have more than 90 owned stores worldwide. So we have a solid basis somewhere. Not every store will sell a Leica watch because you need trained people for that, but maybe half of it. So we have a certain basis.
But does that mean that you're going to be playing it cool for the next few years? And then perhaps when the market picks up, I appreciate what you said, you're not looking at the market, but when the market picks up, would you have ambitions to grow the brand quite quickly, or are you going to remain quite niche, quite recherche?
Growing it, yes. Quickly, I would never do it because it's the watch industry. We're in mechanics, so it takes time. And we have the time.
Hassan, you know the market very, very well, having been running the Arab Watch Guide since 2014, have I got that right?
10 years.
And you've observed the trends, you've observed the shifts in the market, spikes, and some of the lower points as well.
Yeah.
When you see Leica, I want to say a brand like Leica, but because we're talking about Leica, when you see a brand like Leica coming into the space, what do you think the brand needs to manifest to the customer, to the end client, in order to be successful?
I mean, I think today in the markets, the collectors are becoming more stringent in the way they collect. They're not buying watches just for the sake of buying. They're very strategic in the way they think. They want nice storytelling. They want very good designs. They even look at the movements. So I think Leica started with all of these. They have all these elements already. They have a great history. The movements the first one was German, second one is chronode, so they're on the right track. Design elements, okay, it differs by taste, but I think there is room for Leica in that space. A little bit of challenges just to convince collectors to actually, because the price point also is in that it's not the price point where you actually just buy the watch emotionally. You actually think about it. You study it. You are comparing it to other manufacturers, brands that have been there way before, probably Leica. So I think this is where the challenge would be, is to kind of break that barrier and probably win over the comparables, the comparable brands that are out there.
Henrik, let's just put some meat on that bone. What is the price spectrum, and is the plan to stay within that spectrum?
Well, currently we are selling watches from 6,800 euros up to 15.5. We also had a limited edition in gold, which was almost 30,000, but that was 2 years ago.
But it was also special. It was gold titanium, so very interesting combination.
Yeah. So I think we will probably try to add something to that collection which is a bit lower. Not low, but a bit lower.
Why would you do that?
Because I think we need it, and there's space for it, and it also would enable our stores, which are one of the 3 pillars in our distribution system, to sell more. Because of course the sales staff in our stores and the customers entering our stores, like it has been said here before, is mainly focused on cameras, and that is one of the challenges. And I think a slightly lower, again, not a low, but a slightly lower price positioning certainly makes sense.
Hassan, I want to bring it back to what we were talking about just a moment ago. I've spoken to 1 or 2 people this week who say that they feel that the market is still playing to those who are looking for a uniform, and therefore looking for the watch that is recognized, the watch that is familiar, and the watch that carries that sort of blue chip cachet, perhaps. As opposed to those who are looking for an individual expression of their own taste and their own interest and their own education. Where do you think the market is at the moment? What do you reckon in terms of that spectrum? Where is the market falling? What are you seeing, particularly here in the Middle East?
In the Middle East, I think still the majority of the market is gearing towards these big brands, recognizable brands. I would even put them as a safe investment pieces, because people are, again, they're trying to buy those watches with the hope of it kind of keeps its value in the future, even if they're not going to sell them. It's just kind of a feel of ease. I've seen that still as a majority of the collectors, but I've also seen a big group of new collectors that are focusing more on independence, rare pieces, newcomers even, different designs, things that are not familiar, they're not seen on too many wrists, and it can stand out and kind of put them on a very different level than the others. Unfortunately, the bigger part is still on the mainstreams.
Henrik, you alluded very briefly there to what might come next, perhaps a watch at a slightly lower price point. You've also said that you're not planning to bring out new movements on a very regular basis. It's an add-on to your business. But can you give us, by 2031, when the brand is established, what sort of collection do you anticipate having? We've got 4 watches in the collection at the moment. Is the plan to keep it pretty tight?
We have more watches. We have 13 watches right
13
now.
watches?
Yeah.
My mistake.
We have two families, but then different colors, materials, etc. So we have a bit more. That would be a bit not enough to sit up here with 4 watches. In a number of years, I think we will have probably 3 product lines. There are also great ideas to have a sub-product line, which is a bit more rugged and rough and cool and young where we already have a name, and we see in front of our eyes what we would like to have as a product and surrounding this product. We will produce a couple of thousand, maybe 5,000 watches by then, hopefully.
Okay.
I think we will have a mix of made in Germany and made in Switzerland. But we will probably also have a higher share of internal value creation, because we have 2 fantastic factories, one in Wetzlar, where the headquarters is located in the middle of Germany, and one in Porto since 52 years. And they can do a lot. But yes, they need to learn a little bit as well. But there's no reason not to use what they can, and they want to do it, because they are interested in doing something also for our watch project. So that is definitely very high up on the radar, and that would also add a USP. And we're good in optics. Who knows what we can do there? So we have taken first steps to check out that, but I think that is necessary also to further build the brand.
And in terms of storytelling, do you anticipate leveraging the brand against some of your photographers, the Leica backstory, or is this going to sort of exist in quite a separate channel?
You know, I don't know how many watch brands there are, but there are thousands. And the world doesn't really need yet another watch brand, but we are a bit different because we are mainly a camera manufacturer who also produces very nice watches. And I think positioning ourselves in this very interesting field of craftsmanship, precision, culture, art, you know, where we are already with our cameras. That is something that nobody else has. And there are a lot of watch brands that are fantastic in storytelling and great stories and a lot of stories to tell. But we don't have to. We are a story ourselves already. We kind of using a camera, you create your own story. So that is something that makes us special. And for example, in my team, I have a gentleman who is a fantastic mix of photographer and watch enthusiast, and we offer. We've conducted a number of workshops all around the world already, from New York to Singapore, where we teach the participants how to take photos of watches. And I mean, you sitting here, you've probably taken 100,000 photos of watches already, but there's a huge difference between just taking a photo and creating a masterpiece photo. And this colleague of ours, he creates miracles in front of you, with having a couple of lights and the watch, and then he has a piece of paper and he gets rid of the reflection and so on. And that is fascinating, and that is something that we offer, and with our cameras, of course. That is something that is very interesting to participate in.
Idea for a Dubai Watch Week masterclass, by the sounds of things.
Yeah,
if you ask me.
maybe next year. Who knows? Yeah.
Right, sounds like we could all learn anything or two. I'm sure we could. I asked you all this question beforehand, so I hope you're prepared. But if you could summarise Leica Watch in one sentence, or as close as you can. You're allowed multiple clauses, I should say, a few commas in there. But if you're going to summarise what Leica Watch is,
quite simple, 2 words. Das Wesentliche,
There
which means the way of German design and German engineering.
Yeah. Henrik?
Well, the easy thing would be to say the
steal
Leica
from
for
you.
the wrist. And if you use more words, then it's probably a beautiful and incredible piece of craftsmanship and watchmaking, originating in Wetzlar with the Leica DNA for the wrist. That's a long version.
It's a long sentence.
Yes,
but
I try to get it all in.
Hassan, sorry, to turn to you as well. I appreciate it might be a little bit unfair as you're outside the perimeter, but actually that makes it more interesting. How would you summarise the brand in a quick sentence?
I would say simple but complicated, especially after the discussion we had with Dr. Kaufmann, telling it's a very slick watch, kind of slicks in, underrated, you don't know what it is, but actually when you start digging in, you find like a complicated movement, a lot of technicalities, a lot of details that are in it, so it's like simple but complicated.
Cool, simple but complicated, very good. We've got a little bit of time left, and I would love to throw this open to the floor, as there are no doubt some Leica fans in the audience, and now is your opportunity to pose some questions to the two head honchos. We have a roving mic somewhere in the room, I think. If anybody has a question, raise a hand, and we'll get that microphone to you as quickly as we can. If there are no questions about... there we are, goodness, I thought there was got to be one. Can we... the microphone, who's got the microphone, so we can all hear what this gentleman has to say? Thank you. Is it on? Oh, he's got another one, which it would be great if it were mic'd up so we can all hear. Thank you.
Gives the rest of you time to think of smart questions.
So
There we are.
the way you've spelt out Leica on the dial, did you ever consider just going with the red dot and having the symbol rather than the spelling of the word? And that would make it far more familiar to the vast majority of consumers.
Quite simple. When we tried to design the first ZM1 and ZM2, it was after we worked 1.5 years just on the design. Was very clear, don't do the red dot in front, because it creates an asymmetric element, and the only time when you have a red dot is when you press the push button. But you only do this not every day. So it was very clear. This is a different brand. It's called Leica Wetzlar. It's not called Leica Camera. So Leica Wetzlar, and no red dot, but there's a tiny little red dot here. So, but that's the right place to place the red dot.
Thank you. Any other questions? One in the front row here, if we can pass the mic across. Thank you.
Hello, I have a question for Hassan. Do you know how many of the Arab Watch Guide members have Leica cameras?
I think 2.
2, all right. Do you think they are more likely to actually purchase a Leica watch?
So I asked them the question. Do you want to know the answer?
Yes.
I asked them the question. I think I had 2, well, 50-50. One of them was still in the process of kind of understanding the design of the Leica watch and why would he buy one. Mm-hmm. And the other person was already fond of the design, especially actually the second one you released. Yeah. He's ZM
11 and 12.
All right, thank you. For Dr. Kaufmann, I have a question. Since you are also cooperating and helping other companies with your optics and cooperate with or collaborate with other brands on that, mobile phone companies and others, do you think you could also power other watches with your movement that is yours?
Interesting questions. We never thought about it, because our cooperations are usually on the camera and sport optics side. I probably won't do it, but that's my personal opinion.
Right, okay.
It matters quite a lot, that
Thank
opinion. Any further questions around the room? Yes, the lady in the second row here. No, it's better if it comes over, believe me.
Makes it easier.
Okay, hi, good afternoon. I'm Lulu from Indonesia. I attended the launching of this watch brands a few years back. Congratulations. So I don't know, 10 years back or other. So my question is very simple for Mr. Kaufmann and the team also, you. We are from Indonesia, the Asian people, they love all these collections, which is very unique. And Leica watches also is like in our eyes. But will you consider collaborating with artists or any artistic products that will be what do you call that? Part of the dial of the watch, for example. That's my first question. The second question is, will you have because you mentioned that you will have a bigger productions with a little bit lower price. Will you tap the younger generations for that particular level, or will you just focus on the one who already have the camera and then understand Leica?
Let's do collaborations.
So thank you so
first.
much.
Collaborations with artists?
So the first question, we had at a certain time, we looked into watches especially for women, which we don't have at the moment. Working together, that was an idea with one of the most renowned jewelers of Venice. This didn't come about, but let's see. In that case, I would say I would not comment on ongoing projects. The second, with artists, that's probably not the way we do it at Leica, because a functional design with a German background and to do a dial with Picasso or whatever, it's not the right way to go, in our opinion, or especially in my opinion. Second, the lower pricing depends on if we are able to produce enough. So let's see. At the moment, we have a very limited production capability, and what he mentioned, the 5,000, let's see if that happens. I don't know.
You know, I feared when I said lower, I said not low, I said lower. I feared that now everybody thinks we're going low. No, we're not. It's just a slight adjustment, and I think, coming back to your question with the younger generation, I think it's great that there are brands like Nomos, Junghans, and independent ones coming, because a couple of years ago, all the big brands were just pretty arrogant, starting at price levels where they lost a lot of customers. And now they're rethinking. But I always find, yeah, you have to learn, and you take wrong decisions, and you learn and you adjust. But some things are pretty logic, And if you continue to raise price levels all the time, you lose people. And nobody needs a mechanical watch. Huh? And we need to, I think all watch brands should have an interest in getting a younger generation interested in watches and mechanical watches. Huh? So it's although I'm very much in favor of that, I don't think it's not really our task to do that. There are other brands with a bigger production, with lower prices, able to offer lower prices also because of bigger production. That should do that.
I would raise the word lower and would say affordable.
Yeah. Yeah.
Any final questions from the floor? Good. Oh, one more, just snuck in there. The gavel almost came down.
Hello, I'm just wondering, of course, the design and the color of the dials kind of mimic current Leica cameras, but just in terms of dial colors and that sort of thing, any thoughts around doing something a little bit different? I mean, I know that the ZM1 and 2 are kind of typical classic kind of design cues from the cameras. Any thoughts of doing something a little bit different from a dial color perspective?
Yeah, actually, we launched the ZM1 and 2 Urban Green a couple of months ago with a beautiful green dial brushed from 12 to 6 o'clock. That was highly appreciated and it's sold out. Huh? We wish we would have produced more. We see, looking at the ZM12, which we launched in February and April this year, that the more bold color combinations are preferred. For example, the ZM12 blue-orange, which you can see on display there, that is our bestseller right now. And I was in New York attending a watch fair 4 weeks ago, and the biggest interest was for that watch and for the ZM2. Because of the movement and because of the complications and because of the design and the colors. And I think just as for example, this one is called ZM2 monochrome, relating to our black and white only photos camera. So you have monochrome, you have black and white, but you also have color in photography. And I think we shouldn't be the shiny multiple color company now, but we have to be a bit more daring. And what we plan for the future definitely has more colors. And there's always the safe bet for the ones wanting to risk anything, you know, whether it's black or silver or maybe blue. But there are also other colors, and we need that. And I think that would also be a bit of something that separates us maybe from some other brands. So, yep.
Thank you. Oh, Christian. Can we get a camera? Christian has a camera. Can we get a microphone, Christian? There we are.
Moving into watches from cameras, that's a whole new dilemma coming into the world, is that horrible word called after sales. Wetzlar, of course, is the cameras. Will there be a watch-related after-sales hub in Wetzlar, or will you have to say, you know, the ZM1 and 2 will have to go to Lehmann, and the rest of the collection would have to go to Chronod, to a dedicated after-sales group there? Or can you, in time, provide service from Wetzlar?
Well, all that is highly dependent on which movements, of course, you use. And the movement in the ZM1 and 2 is only is very special and needs to be sent back to Lehmann, to the Black Forest, while Chronod is also more open to allow hubs around the world that can repair it, because it's also a simpler movement. So I would say in mid to long term, we should be able to repair the watches ourselves. Hopefully not just in Wetzlar, but also we have subsidiaries all over the world. Why not one in the US, in Singapore, here, in China, in Japan, definitely also. But that is a mid to long term project. For Chronod, we have already taken first steps. And we are also taking steps into looking into the repair of the Lehmann movements, that we can do certain things. Yeah. But we are not there yet. But it's important, because we all know sooner or later a watch needs service, of course.
All right. Okay. Before we wrap up, just give us an idea of what we can expect from Leica here at Dubai Watch Week this week. Obviously, you've got the display case here, but tell us how people can engage with Leica this week if they'd like to.
Well, one of my personal ideas is watches for women which are more into the jewelry segment. Personal wish. Let's see.
And you mean during this week?
I mean,
well,
during this week, yeah.
we had a small press reception in our beautiful store in the Dubai Mall yesterday, and yeah, very nice encounter with local and international press. We are here now. This is probably the highlight. After this, I need a drink, and then we continue with we have interviews. That is, of course, not for the bigger public or for a large number of press, but we also have a collector's evening tonight, and we have a VIP dinner tomorrow. So we are pretty active, but we are not really at the level where we should be present here yet. Give us a few more years, and then the big guys will all fear us when we have a booth here.
A short exposure.
Yeah. My team was the only ones laughing, you know.
Great. Well, let's wrap it up there. Thank you to Dubai Watch Week for hosting us. Thank you to our panelists for coming to talk to us about Leica Watch, and thank you for joining us here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.